So good morning, everybody. And we have the parsha, double parsha this week, of Tazria and Metzora. So we'll try to do a little bit of both. Good morning, Marta. It's interesting. In Israel, they're on a different schedule than us. Right? We are learning different parshiot. Okay? Meaning that the 8th day of Pesach for us was Shabbat. So we did the special Pesach Kriyat Torah. In Israel, they have 7 days of Pesach, not 8. Pesach ended on Friday. Shabbat was Shabbat. So they did the regular parsha Torah reading. Right? So they're a week ahead of us.
So we can catch up?
Well, even though we're doing a double parsha this week. So had they split it up, we would have been back in sync. But they didn't split it up.
Right? It's the same parsha 2 weeks in a row.
Right. Yeah. So they're going to stay ahead of us, I think, till the end of Vayikra. That's when we'll have a double, they'll have a single, and then we'll be back on serve, back on par with them. Tazria and Metzora. Metzora we'll deal with afterwards. That deals with the concept. Well, it's interesting. We always say that we have complete free will, which we do, and the expression is there are no lightning bolts. Right? There are no lightning bolts. You do something wrong. Right? People say, the first time I had a cheeseburger, I thought, I'd be struck with lightning, and I wasn't. Right? In life, there are no lightning bolts, right? That's just not how God operates, right? But there's one exception. The one exception that was in the time of the Torah was Metzora, right? That a person, for the different sins that would cause Tzarat, and Tzarat is mistakenly translated as leprosy, right? It's not leprosy. It was a spiritual disease that manifested itself in a physical way and presented with lesions, all these things over the body. Okay? And we'll discuss that in a little bit, but it's interesting to note that that's where there was a lightning bolt, so to speak. That's where there was this immediate effect. Not necessarily immediate, but there was this effect that hit the person for that which they were doing wrong. But first, and Marta, with your permission, because I did this briefly at Shalosh Shudas, but I'm going to do it a little bit longer now. Okay? So you got a sneak preview. We start off with Tazria. Tazria is the laws of what happens when a woman gives birth. And it seems a little bit strange to us to hear what happens, what these laws are when a woman gives birth. So let's start off from the top. Ruti b'chavod.
וביום השמיני ימול בשר עורלתו. ו30 יום ו3 ימים תשב בדמי טהרה, וכל קודש לא תיגע ולמקדש לא תבוא עד מלוא ימי טהרה.
A little more of im nekeva teled.
וטמאה שבועיים במידתה, ו60 יום ו6 ימים תשב על דמי טהרה.
Okay. So strange stuff coming down over here. Miri's giving me a look like you better have a good explanation for this one. Okay? So in English, please. Marta?
Hashem spoke to Moses, saying, "Speak to the children of Israel, saying, when a woman conceives and gives birth to a male, she shall be contaminated."
Oh yeah, I hate that word, contaminated. But it's tmeya, impure, ritually impure, not contaminated.
She shall be impure for a 7-day period. As during the days of her separation, in infirmity she shall be contaminated.
Or the same way that when she becomes a nida, when a woman has a menstrual period, that she is impure, so too over here, she is Tame'ah.
And on the 8th day, the flesh of his foreskin shall be circumcised.
Okay.
For 30 days...
33?
For 33 days she shall remain in blood of purity. She may not touch anything sacred. She may not enter the sanctuary until the completion of her days of purity. If she gives birth to a female, she shall be contaminated for 2 weeks, as during her separation.
Not just 1 week, but 2 weeks. And?
For 66 days she shall remain in blood of purity.
As opposed to the 33 days. So, after giving birth to a man, to a boy, I should say, she is impure for 7 days, and then an additional 33 days of an interim state until she becomes fully purified and can enter the Beit HaMikdash and all those things. Right? 7 plus 33. If it's a girl, heaven forbid, I'm kidding, but we'll soon see, right? Then it's 14 days of tumah, of impurity, 66 days of interim days, and then she goes to the mikvah, right? And then she becomes purified, right? So
she can't come to the shul for service? No,
she comes to shul.
She comes?
Always come to shul, right? The Beit HaMikdash, right? In the temple, any person who's in a state of ritual impurity is not allowed to enter into the Beit HaMikdash. The reason why the Rabbanut has signs posting the Israeli rabbinate has signs posting not to ascend that ramp, to go above the Kotel, right, above and behind the Kotel, which is the Temple Mount area, is because we are all ritually impure now. We've all been to cemeteries, we've all been to funerals, we've all been in hospitals and people have died, right? We're all ritually impure. We don't have the process to become fully pure, and one is not allowed to enter the temple area, and there are different opinions which areas up where now there is the Muslim mosque, right, which areas were actually the parts of the Azara of the courtyard, and therefore there are those that say you can go up and just don't go here, don't go there, know where you can go, and others say don't go up at all. Right? So, but coming to shul, you can always come to shul. Okay, that's my my approach. You can always come to shul. But understanding, yes, Michael.
It's without touching the torah unless it's with a book.
Even that, there are different opinions.
What was the question?
Right? If a woman is a nida, can she touch the Torah? Right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So how do we understand? Right? And childbirth is the most incredible, beautiful, miraculous, godly act, stage, experience. What in the world is that? How could that cause tumah, impurity? Right? Again, I don't like the term contamination, but that just exacerbates, right, the question. Why is there this tumah, this impurity?
But the process of delivery is not a very clean process itself.
It's not a very clean process, granted, but bleeding doesn't cause impurity, right? If I cut myself, it doesn't make me impure. Menstrual bleeding does,
Because the death.
right? Okay.
Potential.
Okay, so that's what we need to understand. And as I said, you also hear on Shabbat, so you're hearing it again also. Sorry, Elizabeth. Right? But there are many things which impart tumah. Right? Now, again, period. A woman having a period imparts tumah. Right? That's a regular, normal cycle. Why should that cause tuma? Why should that cause impurity? Actually, there are those that explain that a woman, we know a woman is exempt from the positive time-bound mitzvot. Those mitzvot that are positive commands, that things that we should do, that are time-bound, so that a woman is exempt, which means in a spiritual sense, she does not need that in order to connect to God. That's not a spiritual component that's necessary for her to make that connection to God. A man is lacking that and therefore needs that for the connection. A woman is not lacking that, therefore does not need that for the connection. She can do it. She can make a bracha on the lulav and etrog and the shofar, all these things, but it's not something that her neshama needs. Why? Because she's not lacking that time bound. She is a time bound mitzvah, meaning that a male has nothing that works inside of him on a set biological clock. There's nothing that we have that works monthly. We don't work on a clock. We are not time bound, so to speak. Whereas a woman is inherently time bound. She is this time bound mitzvah of her cycle and that which it brings to the world. But let's try to get a better... So why is that cycle something than the menstrual bleeding, the uterine bleeding? Why is that something which causes tumah? Okay? Why is a person who has died, why is that person tameh? Right? That's just part of life. Okay. And there is a halacha. There are three ways that one that one becomes ritually impure, tameh. One is by contact. The other is by carrying, though not direct contact. I'm carrying my phone now, though I'm not in contact with it. Or by being under the same roof, the same covering. That's called ohel. Ohel is the tent, being under the same area. If a non-Jewish person has died, then there is the tum'ah, the impurity of either contact, maga, or masa, or bearing the weight of. But being under the same roof covering does not impart tum'ah. If a Jewish person has died, there is a greater degree of tum'ah, of impurity, and even being under the same covering will impart tum'ah. Okay? That is why there are many kohanim. If a person is a kohen, a man, he is warned against contact. That's why Melvin, if he goes to a cemetery, he's very careful to stay on the road and not go under any trees. Why? If you're under a tree, then you're under the same roof covering as a grave, and that also imparts that tumah. Up in the Pocono Mountains near the camp that Natalie used to run, so there was a road that went, small road, typical country road, right? 2 lanes, 2-way, and and it went past the cemetery, and there was a massive tree there that was over many of the graves and over the road. And some people went and checked, and it was very Jewish-sounding names on those graves. So Kohanim would take a different route. When Kohanim are going El Al, which transports many bodies to Israel for burial, so they have that compartment set up in a way that halachically it has its own roof, so to speak. It's right, so it's the cargo area, but it doesn't extend up to the passenger area, right? Causing halachic problems for any Kohanim who might be flying to Israel. But coming back to the core over here, so why should a Jew upon his death, be more tamei, emit a greater degree of tumah, that it's not just maga or masa, not just contact or lifting of, but even being under the same roof, that causes there to be tumah. So a very, very fascinating and beautiful explanation is given in the name of Chiddushei Harim and others. The concept is that tumah is that which comes about and fills the void of unfulfilled holiness. When there was kedusha, there was holiness, there was potential for holiness, and that is no longer there. That potential is unrealized. And I think very often in life, the most frustrating thing or one of the most frustrating things we encounter is unrealized potential. If there was a potential, there wasn't potential. But unrealized, unfulfilled potential, that is heartbreaking. Unrealized, unfulfilled, no longer available potential, that then is filled with tum'ah, with this impurity. So let's look at the different examples. A person in our lifetime, every human being is created in the Tselem Elokim, in the image of God. It says in Avot, in Ethics of the Fathers, right? Chavivin Adam, how dear is Adam, who is created B'Tselem Elokim, in the image of God. And then it goes further, and Chavivin Yisrael, how dear are Israel, that we are termed the Banim, the children. So if the second half of the Mishnah is how dear is Israel, then the first half, which is how dear is Adam, mankind, is clearly not limited just to Israel. It's all of mankind. And how dear is all of mankind that we are created, B'Tselem Elokim, created in the image of God. So, according to Judaism, every human being is created in the image of God. And we have an opportunity in our lifetime to make ourselves godly, to lift ourselves up. And we are given a set amount of time for that. And then at a certain point, God says, Ad kan, hakafa aleph. That's it. Time is up. At that point, the potential that we had, and hopefully we're utilizing, of becoming and being godly, is no longer there. And therefore there is tum'ah, there is impurity when we have a body. We treat it with the greatest reverence. That was a faithful partner of the soul. And it's treated, it is cleansed, it is prepared. I was there, one time I was there at a tahara, at the purification process, and it is incredible the respect and the reverence that is given to the body, down to the point that at the end we all ask mechila, we all ask for forgiveness, saying we've done things according to the best of our ability, and if we have in any way shown any disrespect, right, please forgive us. And then, of course, the body then is buried so that it can return back to its source, ready for the next stage. So there's tremendous reverence for the body, but at the same time there is this tumah, this impurity of this potential that is no longer there. And a non-Jew has 7 mitzvot b'nei Noach, the 7 Noahide mitzvot, has 7 pathways to connect. And those are taken away. And therefore that potential for holiness is gone, and what comes now is impurity. And a Jewish person who had 613 pathways, upon death, that is no longer there. There again is tumah, and a greater degree of tumah. A woman has that not just through contact or bearing the weight of, but even being under the same roof covering will impart tumah. Because there's a greater degree of tumah. Because there's a greater void that has been created. And what fills that void is this concept that we call tumah, impurity. Now, let me go through. A woman has her period. Biologically, what's happening when a woman has her period? The body prepared for life. The body prepared for fertilization. The body was prepared to create life, a human being with a neshama, with a soul that's going to come down. And that was unfulfilled. At what point is it unfulfilled? Well, there was no fertilization, and that extra buildup of the blood supply in order to give nutrition, to give life to this budding, fertilized egg, to this life that's about to start to grow, that's no longer needed. And the body sheds that extra buildup, and there is menstrual bleeding. Potential for life. A man, after he plays his role in marital intimacy, that's when he has given his contribution. After that, for a man, there is tumah. Let's come now to a woman who gave birth. Birth. So granted there was menstrual bleeding, but on the contrary, granted there's blood that came from the uterus along, as you said, Rachel, it's somewhat of a messy, bloody process event, but there was birth. There was, this potential was maximized. So it's not like the unfulfilled dream of a period. This was the culmination. This was the fulfillment. Why over here is there tumah? So there is no tumah of that child, of course. But for the mother there is. Why? So he said before that we're created b'tselem Elokim, in the image of God. And that means that we are meant to be God-like. Every mitzvah is a way for a physical being to touch the spiritual and thereby make themselves more God-like. That's what every mitzvah does. Last week we discussed kashrut on one level, right? There are foods that we know foods are physically good for you or physically bad for you. There are foods that are spiritually good for you or spiritually bad for you. That's kashrut. And there's another level also, that there is this constant God awareness. I go into a grocery store, I go into Wholesome Choice, and all of those dishes that they're serving out over there sure smell good and sure look good, but nicht for mir. Love ishvili. They're not for me. Why?
Is it Yiddish?
Yiddish, nicht for mir. Right? Because I have to have this constant awareness that I'm living in God's world and there are certain things, yes, I have my own Eitz Hadat. I have my own tree of knowledge of good and evil that I'm not supposed to eat from. And that's what those things, that's the category those things go into. And I pick up an item, I check. Is it kosher, is it not? So what does that do? It gives me this constant God awareness. I'm living in God's world. I have to follow, right? When I'm in your house, I take off my shoes. If you want me to take off my shoes, I keep them on if you're okay with me keeping them on, right? Everyone has their house rules, right? And we respect a person's house rules. I'm in your house. I'll follow your rules. Shoes on, shoes off, whatever it is. I have no problem following your rules. I recognize it's your house. Kashrut makes me realize I'm in God's house. House rules. So every item that I look at, I say, oh, kosher, not kosher. It gives me this constant awareness. Every mitzvah is meant to give us this constant awareness. And we are supposed to try through the course of our life to become as godly as we can. The point that a human being becomes most godlike is a point that a man cannot reach. A woman giving birth is when a person, a human being, becomes a creator. As close to being a creator as is humanly possible is a woman at childbirth. And therefore, at that point, this woman is at the highest level that a human being can reach in terms of being a creator, a godlike creator. That is the woman at the point of childbirth. And then the child is born. So now what happens? She was at this level of being an active creator, and now she's a mere mortal. She's no longer superwoman. She's now just like a regular person. That level dropped. What fills the void of that level, of that holiness that was there that is no longer there? Tuma, impurity. So a woman then becomes Tme'ah. The Chidushei Harim says that when a woman gives birth to a girl, that Kedusha is that much greater because she created a creator. And that's why the Tumah then is 14 plus 66 instead of the 7 plus the 33. That's the explanation that I understand in Tumah. Let's move now to the second part. We have the Metzora. The Metzora is the person who has this skin lesion, these strange skin lesions. And if it first affects a person's house, right? The walls turn green and red. And then it affects the person's clothing. And then it affects the person's skin itself.
How do you translate the word Metzora?
They translate it as leprosy, but I don't like to translate it as leprosy because when we think of leprosy, we think of a physical ailment that we find in parts of Africa, wherever, right? But that's not what it is. And the leprosy of the garments, it only affected white garments. It wasn't on a colored garment, because if it affected the colored garment, my wife would say, oh no, he did laundry again, and he didn't separate things, and this ran and that ran, oh, not again, right? Right? But it's only white garments that there cannot be, or should not be any of this discoloration. And there is. Yes, Ruti.
I have a question. Why is that, like, after Beit HaMikdash, we don't have Beit HaMikdash, most of these rules, they're not applying anymore.
Correct.
But the woman Tumah is. So I don't know, why is the difference?
Okay, excellent question, right? The laws of Tumah don't apply now, right? Because there is no Beit HaMikdash, okay? So why does the tum'ah of a woman and her period, why does that still apply? There are, in addition to, a husband, the tum'ah affects eating consecrated food, be it hekdesh food that was part of the service in the Beit HaMikdash, the avodah. It affects entering the Beit HaMikdash, and it also affects intimate relations. Okay? So therefore, the tum'ah of nida also affects the intimate relations of a husband and a wife. So even though the aspects of the Beit HaMikdash and the hekdesh and the consecrated food and the temple do not apply to us, if a couple are married, then that aspect, right? Well, that aspect does apply when it comes to intimate relations, right? That hasn't changed. That we still have today. So that was always an aspect of it, and that is still relevant today.
But the tumah of the man is also tameh anyways, because he's tumah tameh, he has different tumot, so he is tameh anyway. So why is he becoming tameh when relationship?
So when a person is tameh, we don't say, oh, once a person is tameh, so then it's already tameh, right? In other words, let's say a kohen was in a room when a person died. He's tameh. We don't say, well, therefore he cannot go to he can go to the cemetery.
Doctors are sometimes called.
Right. We don't say that now he can go to the cemetery. He's already tameh, right? Even if a person is tameh, they still are not meant to come in contact, right? And right to further that tumah. Okay, so it's not like once it it's not like once it's broken, and then it's done, right? We don't say again, if a Kohen is in the hospital and the patient next to him dies, right? We don't say, oh, he's already tameh, now you can go to funerals, now you can do these things.
So what about the Kohanim doctors? Kohanim, they have any?
There are different views about a Kohen becoming a doctor. There are different views. There are different views on if, how, etc.
Right.
Yeah.
How come the having a child, it can raise you all the way up, but it raises you down also
Afterwards.
after you have the baby? Why is it that, one, it's not a mitzvah to have children for women, and two, how come not every woman is, a mother or has the potential to become a mother?
Look, every person has their.
We did hear the question, sorry.
Yeah. So I asked, how come it's not a mitzvah for women to have children? It's a mitzvah for men. And also, if it's such a great thing to almost be a creator, how come not everyone's granted the opportunity to be a mother and get pregnant?
So the first part, it's derived from the verses that the obligation to have children is on the man, right, not on the women. Obviously, it takes two to tango, right? But the mitzvah, whereas a woman does not have an obligation to have children, right? A man has the obligation. Now, it's an interesting obligation. The obligation is to try. Right, and the same thing with a woman. Sometimes a man can, sometimes a man can't. Sometimes a woman can, sometimes a woman can't. Mm-hmm. That already goes into every person has their course in life that God lays out, and their challenges and their potential happiness and their areas where they don't have that potential. And that is, we understand, our understanding is that is tailor-suited for every neshama, every soul, and what it's meant to endure and experience in this world. and everyone has their course
So does,
that is set for
I
them.
know it's silly, but Hashem understands if like a man can't have kids.
Of course, Hashem. And not only does Hashem understand, right?
Because it's a mitzvah for the man.
Yeah, he made it that way. I was talking to someone, and someone that there wasn't necessarily a kaddish for someone who passed away, and someone said about that, Hashem will have to say the kaddish.
What did
Because
you say?
Hashem will have to say the kaddish. Whereas the person had children but lost those children. So what does Hashem want from that person? Right? Hashem will have to say the kaddish, so to speak. Right?
What does one do in a case like that? Can somebody else say kaddish?
Yeah.
They do.
Yeah. Usually I'll encourage a family to hire someone to say the kaddish. And it's better that they hire someone than someone just step up to do it, because it needs to be the family's, it's a zechut, it's a merit for the family that they either do it or make sure that it gets done. And that then reflects back, right, onto the deceased, that they have that zechut, that merit. Yeah.
Can I ask you a question? Could it be that, like, there is no mitzvah to honor your children, but there is a commitment to honor your parents, because loving your children comes natural, honoring your parents not always. Is it the same for women? Wanting children is such a natural, built-in instinct that you don't have to. They're missing.
Perhaps.
And for a man, it's not such a built-in instinct.
Perhaps. You're offering perhaps a reason why.
I'm asking
Perhaps.
whether could that be why
Yeah.
there is no mitzvah
Yeah.
for women to have children.
Yeah. So let's come over here now. So this sara'at causes leprosy, which is, causes tumah, excuse me. Right? Now, our teaching is Metzora comes about because of Lashon Hara, because of speaking badly. So what would the connection be? Based on the explanation that I gave earlier, why is Lashon Hara a cause for Tum'ah? Where is the lost potential? Why is that this cause of Tum'ah? Where is, according to the formula we gave before, that Tum'ah is that impurity that fills a void that is created by unrealized or unfulfilled potential? How does that framework, how would that apply to Lashon Hara?
Killing the reputation of a person is like killing them.
Okay, we're killing the reputation of a person.
Destroying.
Okay.
So one of the mitzvot is to not say Lashon Hara. And if somebody does, then it's unfulfilled something.
But that's every mitzvah. You're right, Ruti, but that's every mitzvah.
Also,
What is unique about Lashon Hara?
you can take it back. But that's
Right? But good, hurting someone, can't take it back. But if I beat someone up, I also hurt that person.
So it's a form of the way that you're hurting them with your speech.
Okay, but it's just a form of hurting someone. What is unique about, if I hurt someone, I beat someone up, I need to pay the damages. There is no tum'ah that results.
Yeah, it's worse because when the words are out, and the person is very hurt, then it's worse.
Okay.
It's worse.
They also may not know.
Okay. So words hurt deeper than physical pain. I say this often. If we look back at times in our life that were painful, invariably it's not physical pain that we recall, but it's emotional pain. Something hurtful that someone said or didn't say, or right? And sometimes you get blindsided by it. You might not even know what's going on. There's this whole groundswell, right? That's going on. Good.
And also has a physical effect. When you say something bad about a person, that person becomes what you.
Okay. So there is also this idea that when Adam was created,
He was with the word.
it said we became a nefesh chaya. The Targum Onkelos says ruach memalala, meaning our ability to speak represents a certain godliness that we have. Right? We go beyond just our physical self. Our ability to speak is a certain godliness that we have. Right? When the Torah speaks about the creation of the world, it says, Vayomer Hashem, and God said, Yehi or, let there be light. God said, who's he talking to? It means God willed, and it happened. So why do we present it as God said, if it's simply God's will? Because we need to know that our words make us godly. And we can create with our words, and we can destroy with our words. So when we take that gift that we have, this ability of speech, this godlike ability, and use it for destruction, so that is this potential that has been soured, that has been destroyed. And why do we love to speak Lashon Hara? The Gemara says that everyone messes up with Lashon Hara. No, everyone.
Feel about ourselves.
Oh. We feel better about ourselves when we can point out the inadequacies, that which is lacking in someone else. We are judging ourselves by someone else. We think that if they're lower, I'm taller, I'm higher. And when it comes to our kavod, our honor, that is something that is so dear to us. So it's great to hear things about other people. It's great. It's not great, but I mean, we enjoy sharing things about other people because I feel a lot better about myself when I could put someone else down. Yes, Mary.
So we're not, okay, like women, we always talk, all right? So are we not allowed to express our frustration with husband, kid? How does it work? What do you do with all that angst?
So my wife and I will discuss different of our children, and the different things that are going on. So if we are discussing it, right, if you're talking about something in order to lito'elet, right, to try to help a situation, to try to best deal with the situation, that's perfectly fine. But we're talking about just, did you hear what so-and-so did? Right? Right? If we're dealing with a difficult situation with a spouse, with an ex-spouse, and we need to know how do I deal with it. Someone actually this morning came to me to ask about something, where this person needed to give over information and want to know if it was Lashon Hara or not. I said, in that situation, I said, don't editorialize. Right? An editorial is, well, my view on the situation is this and this and this. You have to, this was about a potential shidduch a marriage arrangement, right? No, it's arranging the marriage, but they're inquiring about a potential, marriage situation. So I said, you've got to share the information, but don't editorialize. Right? This is information. Why are they doing that? Oh, who knows why anyone does it? Who knows why I do half the things I do? I don't. No one else is going to know. Right? So we talk. Right? But we need to be careful about what we say, how we say it, right? And where it's going. Right? Now, what's fascinating, often when we speak about someone, we're thinking about the exterior, right? Not just what they have, but we're not really understanding why they might be doing something, right? In order to really understand someone, we need to really peel back all those layers. What happens to me, the speaker of Lashon Hara? First, my house gets hit. I haven't taken notice, it moves closer. My garments.